No, it's still we haven't started.
Mr. Eruzione there?
Does that work?
Yeah, we can hear you. I don't know if you're able to turn your camera on to see it.
Let me figure that out.
Okay. There you go. Yep.
Is that on?
Well, we saw you for a second. There we go. Can you see me?
I see you fine. You're in the library or somewhere?
Yeah. We're in the library, and then once kids ask questions, I can kind of pass it around so you can see the students.
Okay.
So, well, first off, thanks for doing this. Right now in this class, we're starting to study hockey, and we just watched the movie Miracle. So this is really good timing for you to be able to talk to us. So we've had a couple other people interview, and they've kind of spoken for 5 or 10 minutes, just kind of about themselves and their career, and then the students have asked questions if that would work for you.
Yeah, I don't talk about myself that often, but
Okay.
I grew up here in a little town called Winthrop, Massachusetts, which is basically right outside of the city of Boston, or inside the city of Boston. I live right off Logan Airport. A town that I grew up in. I actually live 2 houses from the house I grew up in. Small little community, about 18,000 people. It's a little peninsula town that sits basically behind the airport. Planes fly over my house all the time. But I went to public schools here in Winthrop. Then I went to Winthrop High School. Then after high school, I went to prep school for a year, a place called Berwick Academy in Maine. And then from there, I ended up at Boston University, where I graduated with a degree in education. I was thinking to be a phys ed teacher. That was my goal when I went to Boston University. Little did I know what would happen to me after. And I had an opportunity to play in the Olympic team, and was selected. And I guess the rest is history to some degree. Ended up being a part of a pretty special occasion. I still work. I actually work at Boston University. I've been there for 26 years, and kind of an ambassador role in some ways. I do a variety of things for the school, from meeting with recruits, meeting with students, meeting with alumni. I still do a lot of motivational speaking. I travel around the country, although COVID has kind of put me in the Zoom zone right now. I have you may hear them running around. I got 3 of my grandsons live down the street, and they're over here today. I have another grandson, a granddaughter, and a new grandson on the way. So my life is pretty exciting right now. I've had the great opportunity to play in a lot of different celebrity golf tournaments around the country. I travel quite a bit playing golf with a lot of other athletes, where we help raise money for various charities. I have my own foundation in my hometown. I have a golf tournament every year that raises funds for my hometown, where I give it back to the community, whether it's to help a kid, boy or girl, play sports, or help in any variety of ways that I'm able to do that. But for the most part, my life is quiet and boring when I'm home. But when I'm on the road, it's pretty exciting. I get to go to a lot of places, meet a lot of different people, and have a lot of fun. I just wrote a book that came out last January called The Making of a Miracle. And it's basically my life story. So if anybody wants to know more about me, maybe you can buy a copy of the book and keep it in the library, and they can read it.
That's actually, during the quarantine, I read that book. That's kind of how I got a hold of you. I think right at Boston University.
Right. Yeah, I wrote the book, and I say it in the book for one reason only. I want my grandkids to know that Papa's life wasn't one day or one game or one goal. My life was more than that, and I wanted my grandkids to know about their grandparents, their great grandparents, and their aunts and uncles and cousins. If you came over to my house now, if you walked around the block, you would run into 10 families that are related. So it's pretty cool to live in the town that I live in. My family's all stayed here, as well as my wife's family. So that was really the basis behind the book. I know. Hopefully, they enjoyed the movie, and I'll hear from them. I thought the movie was done well. I think the HBO documentary, which was done before the movie, I thought was better than the movie. But we can get into that maybe with some questions that the students might have.
Absolutely. So if you're able to, could you talk a little bit about kind of your time playing hockey up until the Olympics, up until 1980?
I was a baseball football player. Hockey was something I just did in the winter. When I was in high school, football was my passion, and I probably played more baseball in my life than anything. Hockey was something I just did in the wintertime. Living in a small town, we didn't have a lot of students, a lot of athletes, so they kind of relied on three-sport athletes. And I've always felt that I was a good hockey player because I played the other two sports. But I kind of stumbled onto ice hockey in some ways. I wanted to go to New Hampshire, University of New Hampshire, and I wanted to play hockey, football, and baseball. And the hockey coach didn't think I was a Division I hockey player. So I basically had no school to go to. I had all my eggs in one basket. So, hockey was something that at that point I decided, well, I guess let me go to a Division II school that accepted me, Merrimack College. They weren't Division I, they were Division II, and offered me a scholarship. So I took it to go to Merrimack and figured, okay, let me just play hockey because they didn't have a football team and they didn't have a baseball team. But funny how life works out. That summer, and you probably read this in the book, I got a call from a friend of mine. They needed someone to play hockey in a summer league game. And I didn't play in the summer because I played baseball in the summer. And he said, we need a player. Do you want to play? And I went, you need a guy, I'll play. So I played in the game. And it turns out the guy refereeing the game was Jack Parker, who at the time was the assistant coach at Boston University, which was then the number one team in the country. And he had a kid from Canada that decided not to come to Boston University. And he asked me if I'd like to go to BU. And I said, hey, go to BU, absolutely. Pass up a scholarship to Boston University. So that's how my hockey career kind of took off. But hockey was something I learned to skate down the street from my house. They froze the tennis courts when I was a kid. Now we have a rink in the town. And it's funny, the rink is named after me. And my grandson skated the rink, but they don't know who I am. I'm Papa. So they're trying to figure out who Mike Eruzione is. So someday I'm going to have to watch that Miracle movie because they haven't seen it yet. And I'm dreading that day. I haven't seen the movie in quite a few years. But, like I said, hockey was something you did in my hometown. It was something that a lot of kids played. And I funneled into it, eventually decided that hockey was going to be the sport I was going to play.
And if you could, and then I'm going to have the kids ask some questions, but how exactly was the process for getting selected to be on the U.S. hockey team in 1980?
Well, they had a lot of people that were offered to try out. They had open tryouts around the country just because they have to cover their bases and say that, hey, anybody that wants to try out can try out. But they selected 68 players. 68 of us went to Colorado Springs and competed against each other. It was called the National Sports Festival then. And it was like an Olympic Games. They had athletes all across the country playing all different sports. There was figure skating, there was speed skating, there was wrestling. It was a sports festival, and 68 of us competed against each other over 2 weeks. In the movie Miracle, they have the team picked in one day. Trust me, it was 2 weeks. So they divided us into 4 teams, and we had kind of an Olympic round robin tournament against each other. And Herb Brooks sat in the stands, and he evaluated the players. And again, in the movie, they had a bunch of people evaluating the players. There was only one person picking the team, and it was going to be Herb Brooks. So I was one of the 68 that got invited. Obviously, going into the tryout, I kind of looked at all the rosters of players and kind of knew, I knew there were probably 8 or 10 guys that were definitely on the team. And then I thought from there, maybe it was wide open that anybody could have a chance to make it. And obviously, I considered myself, having that opportunity to make the team. And at the Olympic Festival, the team I played on, which was the Great Lakes team, even though I was in Boston, they put me on the team in the Great Lakes division. And our team ended up winning the gold medal at the festival. I was elected captain of our team, led our team in scoring. So I think that was a big plus for me going in, that I could show Herb Brooks that I could play at a level that he hadn't seen me play at, because I graduated college 2 years earlier. I played 2 years in Toledo, Ohio, to stay an amateur. And remember, in 1980, pros weren't allowed in the Olympic Games, even though all the other countries were professionals. The U.S. and Canada were the only 2 countries that had amateur players. So, ended up making the team, and that's kind of the process of how it all took place. And 26 players made up the 80 Olympic team. 6 players get cut throughout the course of the training. Only 20 could go. Now I think there's 26 or 27 that go to the Olympic Games. The rosters are expanded. But in 1980, there was only 20 of us.
All right. I'm going to open up some questions to students if that works for you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Anybody got a question you want to ask? Trevor, you got a question? No? All right. They're nervous right now. But so.
High school
Yes, here, I'll
students
bring it to you.
nervous? That's not possible.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm moving to the people.
Okay. So during the game, what was going through your head, like during the entire game?
Which game?
The miracle game, of course.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Everybody thinks we only played one game. And obviously the Soviet game was a huge game and it was an incredible victory. But if we lose to Finland on Sunday or tie Finland, there's a chance we don't even win a medal. So, the Finnish game was actually the biggest game. But going into the Soviet game, I think you run, the whole gamut of emotions. You're excited, you're nervous, you're curious, you're anxious. And the biggest thing I found, and I've played in big games before, whether it was in high school or college, is you can't get too high and you can't get too low. If you get too excited, then you're going to start running around and doing things you're not used to doing. And if you're not prepared, then you're going to get your ass kicked. So I kind of went into that game with a very even mind, just trying to keep myself focused on the task at hand. We had a system and a style that we were going to play, and we didn't want to waver and change it. So I think it was important for me going into the game that I understood exactly what our game plan was, and that I continued to do the things that we were doing throughout the games that had made us successful. So, again, I think you're all excited about the game. You can't wait to get out there. It's almost like when you're a football player for a big game, you can't wait to hit someone and just kind of get that nervousness out of your system. And I think that was the same with the Soviet game. As excited as we were, we had to also understand we had to be in control of what we were doing and not get too keyed up and do things that we weren't used to doing. I mean, in the movie, I think you heard it a lot. Herb said, play your game, play your game. He said that throughout the Olympic Games. We were never worried about what other teams were doing. We needed to just worry about what we needed to do. And I think that was part of the reason we were successful. We just took care of our own business and didn't worry about anything else. And each player prepares for a game differently. I know the night before the game, I went up to this park where my parents were staying. They were in a motorhome the night before the game, and I went back there with them. We had a little barbecue. My dad played the guitar. I had 3 or 4 beers, relaxed, and went back to the village. Get up the next day to play the game. So, I tried to keep things the same as it would be, regardless of how big the game was. I didn't want to change anything.
All right. Anybody else right now? What was the atmosphere like in the arena whenever
it was amazing?
Those Olympic Games were going on.
It was amazing. It was so loud. That's where the USA chants first started. We hear them at sporting events now. That's where it began in 1980 in that little building in Lake Placid. And the funny thing was, when you were on the ice, you couldn't hear a soul. You heard a teammate. You heard Coach Brooks yelling for a line change. You didn't hear the crowd, but when you sat on the bench, it was echoing through the building. And it's a tiny little building. I think it only held 9,000 or 8,000, 9,000, maybe 10,000 people. And it seemed like there were 50,000 in the building. I mean, it was just rocking. And, the waving of the flags, chanting of the USA, it was just an incredible atmosphere. And I think part of the reason we were successful because the games were held in Lake Placid. When the games are in your own country, that's a big advantage, not only from the fan base, but just, the food you were eating, being able to speak English, being able to go out, somewhere and feel comfortable rather than being in another country where it takes a little while to get used to. So I think just the excitement of Lake Placid, the excitement of the Olympic Games, whenever you went out, and it was very rare that we could go out because once people found out you were on the hockey team, it was like, oh my God, you were like a rock star. But the whole atmosphere in Lake Placid, I know probably nobody's ever been there, but it's hard to believe they even held an Olympic Games in this tiny little village. So the whole atmosphere throughout the 2 weeks of the Olympics was incredible in terms of the excitement.
So one of our teachers at PHS is a huge hockey fan, and his son plays hockey. His name's Mr. Greer. I think he's going to ask a question real quick, if that works.
Okay, Mike, I would just want to know if you could explain to the kids what it's like to wear the C on your sweater and what you feel like it takes to be able to earn that C.
Well, that's a great question. First of all, let me give it two answers. One, to put USA across the front is far greater than putting a C on your shirt. When you represent your country in the athletic event, it's, you know, I'm from Boston and I root for my Boston teams, and people like Chicago or New York or Detroit or LA, whatever. But when it's the Olympic Games, it's a whole different atmosphere. It's a whole different feeling. So it's an incredible honor to do that. Second of all, to be the captain was not a big deal to me. And I say that, first of all, I was honored and very proud. But when you looked at the 20 guys on my team, 19 of them were captains of either colleges or high school teams. So we had a team of leaders. We had a team of captains. And I felt once I was elected captain, even if I was elected captain, I still find it hard to believe that 12 Minnesota guys were going to vote for someone from Boston. But I just took it as to continue to be myself. You can't change. You can't become someone different. I think sometimes people become captains and I think, oh my God, I'm the captain. Well, I never looked at it that way. I looked at it as I was a captain amongst captains. The important thing was for me to continue to be myself, continue to have my teammates respect me on the ice, but more importantly, respect me off the ice. So I think for me, that was a quality that I had, is that I'm pretty easy to get along with. I'm not a very high maintenance person, although my wife might say I might be. But when it comes to the locker room and comes to my teammates, I accepted that role as a great honor, and felt that the important thing was for me to just continue to be the person that I am, which is a hardworking guy who loves people, who respects people, who believes in values. I call them old-fashioned values. You know, I believed in heart, I believed in pride, I believed in commitment. Qualities that our whole hockey team had, but I think qualities that I've had in my whole life that have given me an understanding of, in order to be the best, you got to work hard at it. And the most important thing is being a good person. I have 3 children, and they were all athletes and pretty good athletes. And I always told them, I said, I don't expect you to do what I did, but I expect you to be a good person, a good brother, a good sister, a good neighbor, a good friend. And I think those are qualities that a good captain has. And I think those are the qualities that I probably possess that Herb Brooks saw in me.
Thank you very much. Great answer.
This kind of goes with wearing the USA across your chest. I mean, I've read different things from different Olympians, but what is that moment like when the national anthem is played and you've won the gold medal? And after you answer that, what's it like? Because I showed the students in my morning classes that you lit the torch of the 2002 Olympics. Kind of, what are those two moments like in 1980 and then in 2002?
Well, 1980, to stand on the podium and see our flag being risen just a little higher, and everybody in the building singing the Star Spangled Banner. It was awesome. It was again an incredibly proud moment. You know, to go to the Olympics, as I said earlier, I've always said the greatest thrill I had was marching in the opening ceremonies, because if you never get there, none of these other things would have happened. So I remember marching into the stadium in Lake Placid thinking, wow, I made it. I'm on the Olympic team. Now let's see what's going to happen after. But I think standing there, like I said, with my teammates eventually coming up to join me on the podium was pretty special. Now let's fast forward, go to Salt Lake City. That was, again, an incredible, proud moment. When you think about it, and the students may do some research on it, but this was right after 9/11, and the world wondering how the United States could put on a celebration after such a tragedy. And they brought the flag in from the World Trade Center. And they didn't tell us till the night before the opening ceremonies that we were lighting the cauldron. It was going to keep it a secret. So I remember I went back to my hotel room about 3 o'clock in the morning after we did rehearsal. And my wife looked at me and she says, "Where have you been?" And I said, "I told you I was going to rehearsal." She goes, "That was at 9 o'clock. Where have you been? You guys were out drinking." And I said, "I'm in Salt Lake City. You can't get a drink after 10 o'clock. I said, "We are lighting the cauldron tomorrow night at the opening ceremonies. And don't tell anybody, it's a secret." So just to give you another sense of this whole thing, I'm backstage with my teammates, and Peekaboo Street, who's a great skier, Cami Granado, the great women's hockey player, they're going to bring the torch up. And then, Mike, when they get to the top, you walk out, get the torch, hold it up, and then call your teammates. They'll come back from behind the curtain. You guys will turn and light it. Now, the whole ceremony, the whole opening ceremonies was spectacular. And I'm standing backstage, and my heart's pumping. I mean, I can't believe this is going to happen. And just before I go out, Mark Johnson, one of my teammates, he taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Mike, remember, 4 billion people are watching. Don't drop the torch." I looked at Mark and I said, "I can do this." And we did it. And again, I got the torch. It's right over my shoulder. I think you can see it. That was, again, pretty special. But, you know, on the podium was a little more special because if we didn't win, I wouldn't be lighting the cauldron in Salt Lake City with my teammates. So I think that moment was special. Maybe a little more special, but not much more.
That you're segueing into different questions. So the kids researched and they wrote some questions of how different was your life prior to the Olympics, and then how different was your life after the Olympics, or how different do you think it would have been had things not turned out the way they did?
Well, if we had not won, I'd still be living in Winthrop. I'd still be married to the same girl. My wife and I dated for 12 years through high school, and I might have more than 3 kids because I might have been home more. I'd be still living in my hometown. My friends would still be my friends. My family would still be my family. I'd be coaching and teaching. Maybe I'd be a football coach or baseball coach. Maybe I'd be a phys ed teacher at my high school and coach and teach is what I thought I was going to do. The victory obviously has given me an opportunity to do things I wouldn't have imagined. I have a beautiful home here. Financially, things have been very good because I've made way more money than I could ever make as a teacher. But the important thing for me is I'm the same person. I haven't changed. I never felt an athletic moment should change who you are. I mean, it's clearly changed my life. Places I've gone, people I've met. I played golf with the presidents. I've been with some of the greatest athletes in the world. I've been to every state in the United States. I've met some incredible people. All that wouldn't have happened if we had lost. But I'm still pretty grounded, mainly because if I start to think I'm any bigger than anybody else, my friends knock me right down pretty quickly. So life has been different. Opportunities that are there that I never would have had before. But the important thing is I'm the same person I was before. And I've always felt, very happy. I was happy with who I was before the Olympics, and just as happy who I am today. And like I said, I don't think an athletic event should change me. It's changed enough things around me, but the important thing is that it hasn't changed who I am.
All right. Anybody got a question? You don't have to. You want me to bring it to you, or you want me to ask? Okay. All right. Caitlin has a question here.
Okay.
Hi, Caitlin.
So, how did you deal with the pressure of leading an Olympic team?
Yeah, I never felt the pressure. And part of the reason was we were so young. I wasn't. I was 25. But our average age was 21 and a half or 22 years old. And as a matter of fact, the Olympic team I played on in 1980 would be probably the youngest team in college hockey today. I mean, that's how young we were. So we never thought about pressure. We were having fun playing. I think the important thing was just for us to continue doing the things that we did throughout the whole season, laughing in the locker room, having fun playing. Yeah, there clearly was pressure. But I think when you're on a team sport, everybody shares in that pressure. It's not like you're an individual and you got to go out there by yourself and perform. You've got 20 guys in that locker room. You've got 2 coaches. You've got trainers. You've got everybody on the same page. So it's easy to feel a little relaxed. It's easy to kind of just take a step back and take a deep breath and go, wow, this is going to be fun. Let's just see how it's going to play out. So again, I think that's kind of the mindset we had as a team. I played in big games in high school and big games in college. And for me, you can't put pressure on yourself. Other than I've always told people, if you go into a game and think you're going to lose, you probably will. We knew it was going to be hard. We knew it was going to be tough. We knew it was going to be difficult. But when you've got a great team of leaders, you got great teammates to surround yourself with, you take that pressure right off and just go out and say, hey, guys, let's just go out and play. Let's see what's going to happen here. And maybe if we did feel pressure, maybe we wouldn't have been able to perform as well. But I don't think there was pressure. I think it was more of let's just go have some fun and play.
Somebody else. Okay. All right. Trevor's going to ask a question here.
Okay, Trev.
So, how does it feel to play for Herb Brooks?
How does it what?
How does it feel to play for Herb Brooks, the coach for the U.S.A. team?
Yeah, that was interesting because when I was at Boston University and Herb coached the University of Minnesota, we had a game in the semifinals of the national championship, and after 3 minutes in the game, that we had a bench clearing brawl. Both teams should have been thrown out of the tournament. Their police had to come on the ice. It was nasty. And we always blamed Herb Brooks for starting that fight. And I didn't know who Herb Brooks was, but I knew he was tough. He was a demanding coach. And then I laughed about it after, having played under him in the Olympic team. Now I'm convinced he started that fight because he was very, very intense. But I had no problem playing for Herb. Herb was like my high school football coach. Herb was like my college hockey coach. Coaches that coached in the 70s were demanding. They challenged you every single day. They pushed you. Herb was great at knowing how far you could push, how long he could push, and then he would take a step back. But, like I guess I'm not in front of you, but I call Herb like my dad. You love your dad, but sometimes you hate your dad because he makes you do things you don't want to do. That was Herb. And the other thing about Herb was he didn't care if you liked him. And believe me, there were a lot of times we didn't like him. But it was important that we respected him. And there was never once a time we did not respect him. So we knew what it was going to be like. There were a lot of guys on the team that played under him at the University of Minnesota. I think there were 9 players. So they would tell us what to expect. And it wasn't that bad. So for 2 hours, you scream and yell at me, or an hour and a half, and then I'm done. I go back to my apartment and it's over. But he was a guy that was tough, but a guy that was fair. And he was a brilliant coach and a great motivator. So as many as the difficult times were, when I think of the end result, it was worth it. He used to tell us all the time, there's a method to my madness. And we're trying to figure out what that method was. And then we won the gold medal and we went, I guess he was right.
All right. Matt's going to ask you a question real quick.
So
Hey,
in the
Matt.
scene one of the scenes of Miracle, you guys just lost a game and Herb started making you run like suicides. Actually, how long did you guys run for after that?
Well, we skated. We skated after the game. We skated and we did them for about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes, but we didn't do it everybody at once. We did them in waves of 5, and there were only 15 guys that dressed that night. So 5 guys would go, and then another 5, then another 5, and we'd do them for about 15 minutes, then we'd stretch. And then we'd do them again, 15 minutes, then we'd stretch. Then we'd do them again, then we'd stretch, then again. Then they shut the lights off in the building. And we continued, and then finally the drill ended, and we went back in the locker room, and Herb said to us, if you play this way again tomorrow, you're going to skate again. Well, we played Norway the next day and won 8-0. So he got his point across.
Yeah.
And that particular skating drill was something we actually did throughout the course of the season, but nowhere near the extent that we did it after that game.
All right. Maury has a question real quick.
Hey, I was wondering, what was the locker room like after you won the Soviet game?
It was incredible. Guys were crying, guys were hugging each other. And the funny thing was, Herb never said, congratulations, good game. Matter of fact, even when we won the gold medal, he never came in the locker room and said, "Congratulations, good game." He let us enjoy the moment. And I'll tell you, this is a funny story that nobody knows. But we beat the Soviets on a Friday night, and the game was tape delayed. So a lot of guys on the team went back to the house where the parents were staying and got to watch the game because it was on at 8 o'clock. Jim Craig and I got selected by ABC to do some interviews, so we didn't get a chance to see the game. So they watched the game. We go back to the village, Olympic Village, and we get practice the next morning. And we walk into practice, and everybody's still pretty excited. And guys are smiling. They're signing pictures, signing, hockey sticks. And Herb comes in and flipped out, screaming and yelling. He almost flipped the whole table over. "Who do you guys think you are? You haven't done anything yet." And we're like, why is he so pissed off? We just beat the Soviets. And then he put us through almost a similar to practice that he did after the Norway game. I mean, he skated our asses off on that Saturday morning. And, looking back at the time, I was like, why is he doing this? But then later on, I realized he had to get all the energy out of us. He had to bring us right back down to earth because we were just having fun and laughing and joking, and we just beat the Soviet Union. But then I said this earlier, if we lose to Finland, we don't possibly even win a medal. So the Soviet game was a great game, but the Finland game now became the biggest one. So after the win, the next day, he was just as tough and demanding as he had been all year.
While I'm going to the next student, in the Soviet Union game or the Finland game, what was the atmosphere like in between the periods of those games?
So the Soviet game, the first period ended when Mark Johnson scored with 1 second left on the clock. And we didn't play really well in the first period, but the energy in the room was incredible because we were tied and went, holy Christ, we're tied and we haven't even given our best effort. And then the second period, we're only down a goal and played a little better, but still not as well as we were capable of playing. So I think, again, the atmosphere was very positive, very upbeat. We're only a goal behind. At this point, people thought we'd be 5 or 6 goals behind. So we end up winning the game. And now the Finland game, that was interesting because we're losing 2-1 going into the third period. We were trailing every game but one. Throughout the whole Olympic Games, we were trailing every game but one game. Now here we're losing 2-1, and there's 20 minutes left to play. And if Jack O'Callaghan, he must have said it 100 times, there's no way a bunch of effing Finns are going to keep us from a gold medal. And he kept talking about it, kept saying it. And the energy, like I said, the guys, like nobody was sitting. We couldn't wait to go out and play. And that's when Herb came in and he gave the famous speech. I don't think it was in the movie. It was in the HBO documentary. And we're sitting down and he walks in and he said, "If you lose this game, you'll take it to your bleeping grave." Then he walked out. He stood at the locker room door. He pointed his finger back at us and he said, "Your bleeping grave." And he was so right. To come so far, to work so hard, would have stayed with us forever. And it was like a high school football game when you jump through the hoop to start the game. We just took off out of that locker room and jumped onto that ice and scored 3 goals and won 4-2. So the atmosphere was very upbeat, very positive, very, we are not losing this game. And then after we won, then it was crazy in the locker room and the enjoyment of the celebration. But between periods, the Soviet game was very confident, and the Finland game was, hey, let's just put this away.
Okay, so how were you chosen to be captain of the Olympic team?
Well, it was a player vote, and I remember we voted, and we voted after practice. The next day of practice, we're practicing. Practice is over, and after practice, we'd all get in a circle, and Herb would stand in the middle and tell us what we were going to do the next day. And we're all in a circle, and he says, "Okay, guys, we're on the ice tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Mike, you're the captain. See you tomorrow." And that's how it was. Now, I still don't believe I was elected captain by my teammates. I just can't imagine, 12 guys from Minnesota, 9 from the University of Minnesota were going to vote for someone from Boston, because BU and Minnesota, prior to 1980, did have a great relationship. The only thing I can think of was Herb wanted me as captain, 1, because I was one of the older players, and 2, I think he had tremendous respect in me as a person. I think he knew my teammates respected me, And I think he also knew that if there was a Minnesota captain, maybe the guys from Wisconsin, Michigan, and Boston would have went, oh, okay, it's a Minnesota guy. So that's the only thing I can think of. But I think I said this earlier. It wasn't a big deal when you have guys on that team who were captains. Mark Johnson and Bobby Suter were captains at Wisconsin. Kenny Morrow and Mark Wells were captains at Bowling Green. John Harrington and Mark Pavlich were captains at Minnesota Duluth. Jack O'Callahan was a two-time captain at Boston University. Billy Baker, Buzzy Schneider were captains when they were at the University of Minnesota. And the rest of my teammates were all captains of their high school teams. So it's pretty easy to be a captain and a leader when you surround yourself with great players. But not only were these guys great players, they're great people. A lot of them are very successful in what they've done in life because they brought more to the table than their hockey skills. They brought that work ethic and that commitment that I talked about earlier. That is so important.
And I had one more question. So after beating Russia in the semifinals, how realistic were you about beating Finland? Because I'm sure that game took a lot out of you.
Yeah, I think having the day off in between kind of got us back to earth a little. As I said earlier about the practice on Saturday was pretty hard, pretty demanding. But again, a tribute to the players on that team is we didn't go to Lake Placid to win one game. We went there with the hope and dreams of winning the whole tournament. Now we're one game away from having that happen. Like I said earlier, imagine like today someone coming up to me and saying, hey, that was a great game against the Soviets. Damn, too bad you couldn't beat Finland to win the gold medal. So I think we knew that. We understood how important that Finland game was, and we couldn't wait to play it. And I joke a lot about after we beat Finland to win the gold medal, if there was another game to play, we'd have played because that was the type of team we had. The guys in that team in that locker room had a passion and love for the sport of ice hockey. We had a passion and love and respect for each other. We enjoyed each other's company. We enjoyed being together. Even to this day, whenever we have a chance, we have fun. So, I think the Finland game, we were just let's play. Let's see what's going to happen. How's this all going to pan out? How's it going to end? And it ended the way we dreamed and hoped it would.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, back to Trevor real quick.
Okay.
So, were you ever offered to go to the NHL?
Yes. I had a chance to sign with either the New York Rangers or the Buffalo Sabres. But I decided it was time to move on and do something else in my life. I was 25 years old. I actually I called my college hockey coach to see if there was a possibility that he might be looking for an assistant coach next year. And then all of a sudden found out that this thing was a big deal and my life kind of changed and it took a different direction. But, my dad always told me there's more to life than athletics. And at some point the game ends. And if I was 18 or 19 or 20, I probably would have kept playing. But at 25, I just felt it was time to move on and do something else. And it's not like today. Nobody said, here's 50 million. Oh, maybe I'll play. Hockey isn't a sport where you get it. In those years, there wasn't a ton of money out there. So peace of mind was important to me. And what better way to leave than the last game I played, we won.
I got one more question. So there was a player that Herb Brooks brought in, and then some of your teammates told him that they wanted him to leave because you guys were family. What brought that on?
Well, Timmy Hara was the player. Timmy was at the University of Minnesota. He was a great player at the university. He had, I think, 70 goals that year. He was like lighting it up. But as we said to her, we're a family. And we said, look, he was at the tryouts during the summer. He had a chance to showcase his skills. We were all very good college hockey players. So we want to go to Lake Placid with the team that's here. Now, if you want to cut me or want someone else, okay, cut me, but bring back one of the original 26 and not somebody who's having a great college season. But I think that was just, again, Herb was a great mind game player. And I think that was just another challenge he was putting in front of our team to bring someone from the outside in. So I think, I can say it this way now because he wasn't there. But at the time, we were like, oh, my God, I can't believe he's going to do this at this point in the season. But again, I'm always wondering if that was one of his little games that he liked to play with the rest of us. I wish he was alive because I could ask him that question.
All right, I have a few questions that students wrote down. that either aren't here or a little camera shy. One of the questions, especially when we think of basketball, there's a lot of trash talking. In the Olympics or leading up to the Olympics, was there much trash talking in between the U.S. and the teams that you were playing?
No, none at all. One, because I don't speak their language, they don't speak mine. But you would be surprised that universal F-bomb is you get from every language. So you would hear that occasionally from a player in a scrum. You're fighting with somebody and he'd throw that kind of comment at you, but there was nothing that you really could understand what they were even saying.
I thought this was a pretty good question, and like I said, we watched the movie Miracle, but we've all been on the end of a bad loss. When you guys lost to the Soviets a few days before the Olympics, did that hurt your confidence? Did it help that? Do you think it helped long term that you'd already played them before? How important do you think that game was once the Olympics came around?
I think it was important in terms of it gave us a reality check, because going into that game, and we'd basically beaten everybody we were playing, but we were playing colleges and minor league teams. So that gave us a little wake-up call. But I also think, at that point, it was the last game of a long season. I think a lot of guys had one foot in the locker room in New York and the other foot in the locker room in Lake Placid. Just let's get this game over with. Let's go to the Olympics finally. We've been grinding it out. We've been traveling all across the country. A lot of guys worrying if they were going to get tickets for the opening ceremonies. There was so many different things going on in our minds. We were nowhere near as prepared the second time. And clearly the second time we played him, we were a lot more confident than the first time we played him. So I think it was a good game to play. But the other thing is that game was never talked about again. When we left Madison Square Garden after the game ended, Herb never brought that game up. Not once during the Olympics, not once before we played them in the Soviets. He didn't say, hey, guys, remember the last time you played them? That never was discussed. It was like the game didn't even exist, which I think is a great job by Herb. Herb was amazing at keeping things positive. I always tell this all the time, especially when I talk, especially now, and I know the students are out there now. This is a sucky time. It's hard. It's demanding. It's not fun. It's not fun being a student. It's not fun being a student athlete. The things that we're going through in this country right now, it's hard and it's difficult. But if you dwell on the negative, you're going to think nothing but negative things. So Herb turned that negative game into a positive by never talking about it again. So our mindset was always in a positive mode. So like I said, now everybody's demanding, find something, positive, as small as it might be, and build off of that. Because if you think negative things, nothing but negative thoughts will stay in your head. So Herb was able to take that game, throw it away as if it never happened, and kept our mindset, kept us being positive. Like I said, now the difficulty we're demanding, I try to find something positive every day, something as little that might be, and that's going to be my thought for the day. A good thing, not a bad thing. And I think Herb did a great job with that Soviet game of eliminating it from our minds as if it never even happened.
This is kind of a question after the Olympics, but how do you think hockey and maybe the Olympics in general have changed from 1980 to now 2021, but the 2020 Olympics?
Well, a few things have changed. Obviously, there's more countries than there were then, especially the winter games. There's more sports. You look at the winter sports now is snowboarding and indoor skating, speed skating. I mean, it's probably more that I don't even off the top of my head I'm thinking about. So there's more athletes that compete. There's more countries that compete. As far as hockey goes, it's so much better now. The skill level is off the charts. European countries are better now than they were then. The United States is obviously better than we were in 1980. The skill level, you look in the National Hockey League. When I was a kid playing, you were either from Massachusetts, Michigan, or Minnesota. Now you got players from Texas, Arizona, California, Florida, Midwest, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Alabama. I mean, you look at the NHL rosters and where these kids come from. So the growth of the sport is incredible. Not only our men, our women as well. The growth of women's hockey in this country is amazing. The skill level, and I know there's some ladies in the room, I'm not sure how many people follow women's hockey, but the skill level of our women today is off the charts. I mean, they can play, and more women are playing hockey. So I think the sport of hockey has grown. We go into a tournament now, whether it's the men or the women, whether it's the World Juniors, whether it's the NHL playing against each other in the Olympic Games, whether it's the World Championships, we go in as one of the favorites now. We're expected to medal. And prior to 1980, nobody ever thought the U.S. could do that. So the growth of the game, the growth of the college game, the skill level, like I said, it's off the charts. These guys are so good. And I think it's in all sports too. I mean, the football players of today are way better than they were 20 years ago. And so are basketball players. But the growth of hockey, and a part of that is also because of the Europeans, the influx of the Soviet players, the Russians, the Swedes, the Finns, the Czechs, the Germans. Some of these countries are producing great players, players from Austria, players from France that are playing in the National Hockey League, which you never saw years ago. So the sport is off the charts as far as the growth and the skill.
Anybody got a question? All right. Okay. We probably have time for a few more questions. Here's Trevor again.
When the first game, when the goalie for your guys' team got ran over really hard, how did that affect you when he got rammed over real hard and Herb Brooks got upset about it?
Oh, that's when the Czechoslovakia, when the guy ran Mark Johnson, and Mark's shoulder popped out. That showed you the fire in Herb. You saw the intensity, and he sent a message to the whole team. We are not going to stand for this. We are not going to take this. And that's our best player. And if you follow the Olympic Games, if we ever lost Mark Johnson, we don't win a medal. And yet Mark came back. I think he had a slight separation in his shoulder. But that, you heard, I think the exact words were, "I'll get that coho," which is a hockey stick, number 3, and I'll shove it down your goddamn throat. I'll shove it down your throat. And the cameras picked up on that, and the guys on the bench heard it. And I'm telling you, it was like a rallying cry. And it was like, yeah, look at, you're not going to get away with that. Not only from the player standpoint, from our coach's standpoint as well. So I think it was a message that he was able to send to Czechoslovakia, and a message to our team is that's not going to happen. And Mark
also, oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I said, and Mark went up and had an incredible Olympic Games.
My last question is did you ever check somebody into the glass when you were playing hockey? Did you ever bump into somebody hard?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like playing a football game and not hitting somebody. Yeah, the hockey's a physical game. The Olympic Games is a little different. It's still physical, but the ice surface is bigger. It's a lot wider. It's a little longer, so there's not as much contact because there's so much more room out there. But when I played college hockey, when I played in Toledo, yeah, there were fights. There was some physicality. That's just the way the game is played.
I'm going to see Mr. or Mrs. Greer. Do you guys have a question, or your son have a question here as we're ending?
Nope, I think they covered a lot of good questions, the kids did.
Okay. I'm going to have 2 questions, and if anything else you want to add is great. But this is just a personal question, and I've read about Super Bowl champs and different people. They end up just putting their ring in a safety deposit box. How often do you get your gold medal out of, and how do you know where it is? I know you know where it is, but how often do you really mess with your gold medal?
Well, the gold medal's in the bank in a safety deposit box. The last time it was out was just before COVID, when my grandson took it to school for show and tell. I don't see it that often. I don't take it out that often. It's worth a lot of money, so knowing me, I'd probably leave it in my golf bag somewhere. But I don't know if you know the story, but quite a few years ago, I sold all my memorabilia. I sold my jerseys. I sold the stick that I scored the winning goal against the Soviets. The only things that will not be sold while I'm alive is the ring that we got and my gold medal. I got $1.3 million for all my stuff. I gave the money to my kids. I started a scholarship in my mother and father's name at Boston University. I put some money into my own foundation. My kids have used that money to each buy a house. So, I have 3 kids and I had 2 jerseys, and they were all sitting up in the attic in my hockey bag, believe it or not. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this stuff? So I sold it and used it for a good reason. I wanted to see the money go while I was alive, and note that it's gone to some very worthy causes. Financially, like I said earlier, things are fine for me. I don't need that money. My kids needed it more than I did. But the gold medal will never be sold. But the joke in my hometown is if I die tomorrow, my 32-year-old son will have that on eBay in a heartbeat. I know he won't, but it's kind of a joke amongst my friends. And what was the other part? I'm sorry, I get that was it, right? The memorabilia, the stuff there. Yeah. No, the gold medal. I'm sure my grandkids will take it to show and tell at some point, but I don't take it anywhere when I travel because, one, like I told you, it's worth quite a bit of money, and it also looks like a bomb. There's a circle with a little pin at the top, and if you put it through security, if they take it out, then everybody's going to see it. Then I got to deal with all that, so it stays in the bank.
Yeah. Let me just make sure no more kids have questions real quick. Anybody got a question? All right. So we've had a few different guest speakers, and we've ended on this. A lot of these kids are seniors. They're all either juniors or seniors. If you were to give them some life advice as they're leaving for college or the workforce, what would you say to those students?
Well, I don't want to sound like your father or your teachers. I'm a pretty old school guy. I'm a believer in working hard to achieve your goals in life. And I think I said this earlier about being a good person, being a good brother, a good sister, a good neighbor, making the right choices in life. And I used to say when I was in high school, and I wasn't an angel, believe me, whenever I thought of doing something wrong, it would be like, okay, what would my mother think if I did this? And if I knew it was like, she'll be pissed, it was like, okay, I'm not doing that. So, it's so hard. It's not easy being a kid today. Social media is a nightmare. I'm on Twitter. That's about all I'm on. And I'm on that only because from a business standpoint. But Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all those things can do nothing but get you in trouble. I know when we recruit a hockey player at Boston University, the first thing we do is look at their social pages and see what they're saying and what they're doing. And I can guarantee you, when you're looking for a job at a high-end company, they're going to look back and see what you've said, what you've written. And I know we're all young and we all do stupid things, but be careful of that. But also, guess what? Have fun in your life, especially what we're dealing with now. Enjoy every moment. Enjoy every opportunity you have, and work hard. I've never met a person who's successful because they're lucky. People are successful because they're not afraid to roll up their sleeves and go to work every day. So that would be about it. Like I said, I don't like to preach. I didn't do it to my own kids, but I think it's important that you understand that being a good person is people are going to remember me hopefully down the road, not because I won an Olympic gold medal. I'm hoping they remember me that I was a good person. I've met a ton of athletes, professional athletes that are real assholes, and I'm like, wow, people look up to that person, and I know what he's like. So a gold medal doesn't make you famous. A gold medal doesn't make you a better person than someone else. Athletically, I achieved something that's pretty special. But if I turned into an ass, I wouldn't be comfortable having achieved the success that I have. So that's about all the advice I can give you.
Well, I can't thank you and us as a class and a school enough for doing this. This was great. We've had several speakers, and you're right at the top. And we really, really appreciate you taking the time to speak to our class.
Thank you very much. And everybody out there, stay safe, and we'll get through this craziness. Take care, everyone. Bye.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.